welcome here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto. We gather, our different paths entwined, to deepen our spiritual lives, nourishing connection, learning from each other, caring for each other, tending to our world. Masks are not required, but are strongly encouraged to express our mutual respect by supporting each other's decisions about masking, distancing, and other health measures. If you're here in person and you have questions about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, please stop by the welcome table with the blue tablecloth in the back. You can leave your contact information if you want to receive notifications of upcoming events. And if this is the week you want to join the congregation, you can do that here today too. Please note the announcements of upcoming events in the order of service. And we have a special announcement from Elsa Schaefer from the Stewardship Committee about our upcoming one-week pledge drive. Elsa? Is Elsa here? Should have checked. We'll hear from Elsa when she arrives. And now let us begin our service. Thank you. And now, Elsa, would you tell us about the pledge drive?
I'm shorter than Ed. Good morning, all. We put you and us through a lot last year, for which thank you so much, and the whole church has such a great foundation now. We also learned from our neighbors up the road in Redwood City, the fellowship and the UU there, that they had a 1 week, very successful pledge drive last year. And we said 1 week versus, the several months we put all of ourselves and all of you through. So we are borrowing that this year, and we all want to make it very successful so that it continues to be a 1 week pledge drive for all of us. Is that cool? We are starting that next Sunday, but this week in your mail at home, you will receive Grace Bashara's gorgeous brochure and a little writing around it. We'd love to have you read. There will also be a pledge card in that. If you can bring that pledge card next Sunday, we will have a lovely lunch, thank you, Edie again, Edie and Company, with brownies and strawberries for dessert. And we will start raffle drawings. And we have wonderful prizes, including from people like Bruce, who will give you a lesson and you will come out singing. Or if your lesson is, if you're embarrassed by that, although I'd love it, you can spend that time with him as you and he agree. And he's even agreed to this. There's also Veronica, Moscow Conservatory trained Veronica, who will give you a piano lesson or whatever you choose to do with that time. I see some this, but I see some excited faces. You also will be able to win a lunch with our dear Reverend Amy, and that's called Bending Her Ear. You also could do the same with, actually, I will say with our board chair, Buzz, and Reverend Kat has agreed that you can choose her story for one Sunday morning. Da-da. So you can really influence a lot of what's going on. And then the grand prize at the end is Reverend Amy will let you choose the color of her hair the next time it changes. There are 6 prizes in all. If you can bring your pledge next Sunday, you get to be drawn, you get a raffle ticket, and it'll be drawn for all 6 of them until you win one. You're not going to win twice, apparently. But we do 1 that first Sunday, 2 in the middle of the week, and then 3 that following Sunday, where there's also a lunch for all of us. Thank you so much. Please help it be a success early so we all get out of here fast. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Elsa. I'm taller than Elsa. So, if you have a chalice there with you at home, please light it with me. We ignite this flame, symbol of our faith, to beckon us into community, warm our hearts with love, and give us a light to follow as we carry our faith into action. With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from Humanist Voices in Unitarian Universalism. Late in his life, the philosopher Richard Rorty, a well-known atheist, was asked by an interviewer if he could define holy. Perhaps the interlocutor thought that the aging and dying Rorty would be stumped by the question or would fall into some traditional language of reverence. But Rorty was not stumped by the question. He responded, "Holy, the hope that someday my remote descendants will live in a global civilization in which love is pretty much the only law." As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, we allow ourselves to arrive here fully. And a story.
Good morning. like to invite all those who are young or young at heart to come up onto our colorful quilt for Time for All Ages. This story is about a very important thing. It's about what's going on right now in the world and what we can learn about this. Now, this story comes from a very unusual place. It comes from the deep sea. So I need some of my friends to be my little fishies. All right. Good morning, hello. So this story is called Swimmy by Leo Linoni. Hello. So in this story, there is a school of red fish. Do I have anybody who wants to be a red fish? All right, here's one for you. And then, we have lots more. So here, and then there'll be lots of time to be fish together. So we'll all take turns. All right. Well, just wait, all right. So, there was a happy little school of fish that lived in the corner of the sea somewhere. Only one of them was black as a mussel shell. So this is Swimmy. Swimmy, would you like to hold Swimmy? All right. So Swimmy, he swam faster than all his siblings. That's why they called him Swimmy, because he swam so dang fast. So one day when Swimmy was swimming around, a tuna fish, swift, fierce, and very, very, very hungry, came darting through the waves. In one big gulp, he swallowed all the little red fish. Only Swimmy escaped. Now Swimmy, he swam into the deep, dark sea, and he was very scared and very lonely and very sad. But in the sea, there's many marvelous creatures. And so he swam from marvel to marvel. Now, I'm going to need your help. When I say he saw, can you go gulp, gulp, like a fish? Glub, glub. Let's try. He saw a big lobster. Glub, glub. Oh, excellent. All right. He saw a rainbow jellyfish. Glub, glub. He saw a lobster who walked like a moving water machine. Glub, glub. He saw a strange fish pulled by an invisible thread. Glub, glub. He saw a forest full of seaweed growing from sugar candy rocks. Glub, glub. He saw an eel whose tail was almost too far from it to see. Glub, glub. And let's do one last glub as he continues exploring the sea. Glub, glub. Then, hidden in the darkness, he saw a school of little red fish, just like his own. And he said to them, "Let's go swim. Let's go play. Let's go see things," he said happily. But the little red fish, what do you think they said? Yeah, no, we can't. We saw that big tuna fish out there. No, we're not going to deal with that. Well, Swimmy, what he had to say to that was, "You can't just lie there. We must think of something." So Swimmy swam and thought and thought. And then suddenly he said, "Oh, I have it. We are going to swim together like the biggest fish in the sea. And I will be the eye." So they swam close together, each at his own pace. And when they learned to swim like a giant fish, Swimmy took on the role as the eye. And they swam and swam in the cool morning water and into the peaceful sea. And everybody went together, glub, glub. Well, thank you so much for listening to my story. So please rise now and head back to your seat. We will, thank you for the fish. Thank you. Thank you. We will now join in singing together "When the Spirit Says Do." After we sing this song, I will be in the lobby for religious education to take our friends to preschool to 8th grade. Thank you.
We turn our thoughts now to the important events of our lives, which we wish this community to share. If you have a joy or a sorrow you would like me to speak this morning, post them in the chat box provided by Zoom, and they will be shared aloud. In the future, you can always... Let us now take a few moments of silent prayer and meditation to hold all that we have heard with compassion and care. Blessed be. Please join me in saying aloud our 7 principles, along with the proposed 8th principle adopted by more than 225 congregations. The text will be shown on screen. We, as a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the independent thread of all existence of which we are a part, journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Now, please rise in body or spirit and join in singing Once to Every Soul and Nation, number 119 in the gray hymnal. Words are on screen in the order of service. Our reading today is by Sharon D. Welch from her book, Sweet Dreams in America, Making Ethics and Spirituality Work. The wellspring of decency is loving this life in which people die, people suffer. There are limits, and we make mistakes. The wellspring then of moral action is not utopia, not a counterfactual vision, not a declaration that the world could and should be otherwise. Rather, it is a deep affirmation of the joy, richness, and blessing that the world is. The ground of challenging exploitation, injustice, and oppression is not a vision of how the world could be or will be in the future reign of God or after the revolution. The ground of challenging injustice is gratitude, the heartfelt desire to honor the wonder of that which is, to cherish, to celebrate, to delight in the many gifts and joys of life. So, thank you. I am delighted to introduce Julie Lythcott-Haims, who's spoken here at UUCPA before, most recently last August, I believe, in the fireside room. Julie has dedicated her career to fighting for humans. Her book on parenting, How to Raise an Adult, was a New York Times bestseller, and since then she's published an award-winning memoir, Real American, and most recently, Your Turn, How to Be an Adult. As a parent, author, speaker, and Palo Alto Council member, Julie has led on the issues of climate change, affordable housing, youth mental health, and building a sense of belonging for people regardless of their identity. She'll share her thoughts about this current American moment and what is being asked of us to make life better for all humans. Thank you. Julie?
Good morning. Just that feels so good, doesn't it? In this epidemic of loneliness that we're all experiencing, just to speak and be responded to, just to be held in this language of good morning feels so good. Ed, thank you for your kind introduction, and Reverend Amy, I know, isn't here, but I want to thank her as well, and Judy, who has had me here before for the firesides. I'm grateful to the community for inviting me to be with you today. I am Julie Lythcott-Haims, and since Ed gave his pronouns, I know that that's welcome here. I'll give mine, she, they. And I want you to know that I'm an author and I travel around the country speaking around about my books, and usually I speak for an hour. Don't worry, don't worry. I'm planning to go for 20 minutes today, and I will work at that. And I want to say that this invitation came long ago. I am a candidate for higher office right now. I'm not here talking about that. This has nothing to do with that. I was invited before that was a thing. I'm just simply speaking with you today about things I care about that I think you also care about. I'll confess I am not very religious. I am one of those spiritual but not religious types. But I am pretty sure that the Bible tells us to do unto others as we would have others do unto us. And I invite you to be curious about when you knew that doing unto others as you would have others do unto you mattered. Because I'm pretty sure everyone in this room makes that effort all the time. But I think we should all be curious about, when did I know it in my spirit? When did I feel it in my body? When did I know that it is essential that I treat others the way I want to be treated, which I think means with dignity and compassion and care and kindness? I will tell you, I stand before you as a 56-year-old person. I came into this world inherently transgressive because my parents are an African-American man and a white British woman. And when they dared to fall in love and dared to marry and dared to have a child, me, they were breaking the rules of society by doing that. In 12 states, it was illegal for my parents to be married. I come from people who broke the rules they knew were wrong in order to push for what was right. I am the product of that. And I learned young, growing up in New York and Wisconsin and Northern Virginia, I learned that my parents were transgressive. I was told that by the looks on the eyes in the faces of strangers who greeted us with disdain or scorn as we moved through the world as a family in the early 70s. And so I knew that some strangers thought something was wrong with my black daddy. I could tell from their body language, from what they were giving off, from their eyes. And I knew that some strangers didn't like my mom and dad being together. I could tell. And I also knew that something was problematic about me, because the questions I got, what are you? You know, I was unclassifiable. There weren't kind terms for being mixed race then. So I learned from the curious questioning from strangers, but also friends and friends' parents and teachers, that maybe something was wrong with little old me too. And I think I can root my compassion in a 7-year-old experience I had, an experience I had at 7. In New York, hot summer day, we're all my friends, white friends and me, only a kid of color, in an above-ground swimming pool in somebody's backyard on a hot day, swimming, enjoying ourselves, splashing about, 7-year-olds. We are in 2nd grade. And somebody's mom comes through the back door. You can hear the screen slap. And she pounds across the deck and stomps across the grass and comes to her child who's in the pool with us and says, "Come on, get out. You're going home." And we felt badly for our friend, because what had he done to make his mom pull him out of the pool on a hot summer day? He must have done something wrong, we knew. Turns out he hadn't done anything wrong. She just didn't want him swimming in a pool with a black child. I'm 56. It still breaks my heart to think about myself at 7, experiencing that. So I invite you to ask yourself, when were you treated in a way that taught you you don't ever want anyone else to feel that way? Or if you weren't treated that way, maybe a loved one was. Maybe someone you cared about was the wrong this or that, or had an identity that people didn't understand, or a diagnosis or a difference. Maybe you had a friend. See if you can root the location that blossomed your compassion. I think it's important for us to be that self-aware. It helps ground us when things are challenging. I want to go to your mission. I would love that. Is that tissues? Ed? Yes, thank you. Thank you. I am crying, and I have makeup running down my face. Look at how good we are when we do things like this. Okay, thank you for the compassion of the tissue. All right, so I want to go to your mission, which I love. I took a photo of it in the lobby this morning. We gather our different paths entwined to deepen our spiritual lives, nourishing connection, learning from each other, caring for each other, tending to our world. It is a tough time right now in our America and in our world and on our planet. We might not have chosen to live in difficult times if God and the universe and everybody that runs this had given us a choice. We might not have chosen this difficult time, although maybe some of you are like, no, I'm here for the difficult time. It's not an easy time to live through, but I believe we are all we've got, and that's enough. We are all we need, these humans here on this planet now. And that's because I have this profound belief in humans. I love people. I believe in us. I know in this 21st century, with all that we've evolved to become, we are capable of higher level thinking, not the tribalistic lizard brain thinking that got our ancestors through those cave days. We are capable of higher level thinking. We have sent machines to Mars, and we've decoded the human genome. We've gone way out macro, and we've gone deep in nano. And I'm pretty sure that the humans who did those things can also be the humans who root out hate and divisiveness. I do believe that. So I want to spend the remainder of my time looking at 3 elements of your mission: learning from each other, caring for each other, tending to our world. And I'm going to tell you 3 stories, which I called Me and the 3 Wise Men. Pat, Tony, and Ed. Okay? So in terms of learning from each other, I know this is possible. And this is a story about me and Pat. Pat is a colleague here on the City Council in Palo Alto. He's been mayor of our amazing city 3 times. When I was running for City Council, I asked for his endorsement. He very kindly told me he was supporting other people. It's fine. I ended up on the City Council anyway. And a couple months in, Pat said he was creating a Stanford ad hoc committee, that the city really needed to, really get Stanford to kind of get on board with doing more of the things the city needs and wants. And I think that's an important committee. So I said, can I be on that committee? And weeks went by, I didn't hear anything. I wanted to be on the committee because I'm a Palo Alto resident. I've lived here for a long time, but also I'm a Stanford grad and a former Stanford dean. And when Stanford and Palo Alto aren't getting along, I feel like a child of divorced parents. So I want to work toward compromise. I want us to learn from each other. So I asked, can I be on this committee? After a couple weeks, he called me. He's like, you want to be on this committee? I said, yes. He said, do you want to hear about the history? Sort of implying in his tone that maybe I didn't want to hear about the history and I just wanted to push my own agenda. I said, of course I want to hear about the history. Thank you. And I took out my notebook and wrote, over the course of 45 minutes, 12 pages of notes on what Pat was teaching me about that long, sordid history of Stanford and Palo Alto. And when he was done, I looked back at my notes and I said, okay, so what I'm hearing is this. And it sounds like this was really frustrating, and you worked really hard on that. And wow, thanks, I didn't know about that. Active listening, treating him with respect, showing respect for an elder who had so much to teach me. And then I pivoted and I said, I actually really agree with that. And wow, yeah. So I was adding my own voice to the mix now after actively listening. And then finally at the end I said, I kind of feel differently about this piece. What do you think? His tone completely changed. He chuckled. And he said, when you were running, you were the last person I thought I could work with. And I said, ditto. But here we are, an hour into talking about a city we both love. What do you say we keep going? And Pat has become a trusted colleague. More than that, he's become a mentor. More than that, I have learned from him. And I think in some ways, he is also learning from me. So I am clear that people who do not expect that they are going to be able to work together can, when we make the effort to treat each other with compassion, with dignity, with respect. That's my Pat story. My Tony story. Tony's a guy out in Syracuse, New York. I was giving a talk at SUNY Binghamton on one of my books. Actually, they have me year over year come to Parents Weekend because they like the message. So Tony picks me up from the Syracuse airport to drive me an hour and 20 minutes straight south to Binghamton in upstate New York. And I get in the car, and I always chit-chat with drivers. I love people, right? So I'm interested in everyone's story. So I'm like, hey, how are you doing? He's like, I'm fine, but my sister, man, she just lost her house in that hurricane in Florida. This would have been a couple of years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Is she all right? Yeah, she's fine. She's inland with family, but her house is gone. And I said, Tony, my goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to your sister. I'm glad she's okay. Really sorry she's lost her house. Man, climate change. She's got too much water there in Florida, and I've got, fire where I live in Northern California. We got to get this under control, I say from the back seat of this car. And he looks in the rearview mirror and he says, I'm not supposed to say this, but I pretty much disagree with everything you just said. Climate change is not the result of human action, and there's nothing we can do to change it. And I said, okay, Tony, well, we got another hour and 15 minutes together in this car. I said, and we got clear that I'm a Democrat and a liberal, and he's a Trump guy and a conservative. And I was like, Tony, I think if we are not cruel to each other, we're going to be fine. What do you say we keep talking? So we talked about Trump, we talked about Biden, we talked about gun violence and the cause of it, and we talked about climate, we talked about a lot of things. And to his credit and mine, we kept it, kind, even though we were constantly disagreeing with each other. We didn't go to a place of cruelty or disdain or what have you. About, half an hour with a half an hour to go, he's like, so, what are you actually here for? Why are you coming to Binghamton? I said, well, I'm an author. I've written these books, and, one's on parenting and one's on being black and biracial and white spaces and dealing with microaggressions and racism. And I think we'd already touched on race, and he was clear that Trump was not, a racist or a white supremacist, and so we had that dance. And so now I'm telling him I've written a book about my lived experience. I said, I wrote this book on the microaggressions and racism I experienced as a child and as an adult. And he looks at me in the rearview mirror, And he says, I had a black friend. Tony's a white Italian guy from New York. He's like, I had a black friend when I was a kid, you know? And I was like, awesome. And he says, but my friend didn't go through anything like that. I said, how do you know? He says, he would have told me. We were close. I said, Tony, I didn't tell anyone until I wrote a book that I published at 50. Tony looks at me in the rearview mirror, and he just sort of nods. So then Tony, now we have arrived at the hotel, and the valet is wondering, does she want to get out of the car? Does she not want to get out of the car? And Tony and I are still talking. And Tony puts his head in his hands, or looks down. And then he says, I was bullied as a child. I said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I leaned forward, I put my hand on his shoulder. I'm still in the back seat. What happened? He said, oh, there's this older kid. He would rough me up every day for my lunch money or my lunch. Happened for years. I said, my goodness, Tony, I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve this. He's like, it's all right. It's okay. I'm fine. I said, it's not okay. It wasn't okay. I'm really sorry you went through that. He said, yeah, well, finally I told my dad, and he went and roughed up that kid. It was a different era. I said, okay, but I'm sorry that happened. And Tony looked up at me in the rearview mirror, and he said, I believe you, Julie. I believe you, Julie. I stand with you, Julie. And I was like, I stand with you, Tony. The valet's like, what the hell is going on in this car? Sorry. Right? He came around, gave me a huge hug. A year later, he was there to pick me up for my annual talk at Binghamton. I said, Tony, how are things? He's like, the proof is in the pudding. He had lost 100 pounds since our conversation. I'm not trying to say that our conversation changed everything. However, Tony had some truths to tell. Tony wanted to be held and needed to be held in his pain from childhood. And when we can do that for each other, caring for each other, look what we can achieve. So that's Tony, and then there's Ed. This is for tending to our world. Ed is a guy I met in Saratoga last week. He said, you know what, Julie, I'm a conservative Republican, but if I lived in your district, I'd vote for you. I said, why? That's great, but tell me. He's like, because I believe you. I'm listening to you, and I believe you will do what you say. And I was like, thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. He's like, let's talk about the unhoused. And I was like, should we? But I said, yeah, let's talk about the unhoused. He said, you know what they need? I said, what, Ed? He said, they need to be treated with dignity. I said, yeah, 100%. Imagine if those leaders at the national level had a dignity caucus. If they said, who believes in dignity? Who knows the power of dignity? Who knows what it sounds like? Who knows what it feels like? Who knows why it matters? Can you imagine if they assembled themselves as a dignity caucus and said, we're going to have 3 or 4 meetings and just talk about dignity? And then we'll ask ourselves, now what are the policy points that might be rooted in a commitment to treating humans with dignity? Can you imagine how things might be different and bipartisan and humane and humanitarian and peaceful if we could root our policies and politics in a sense of treating humans with dignity? I too hope and expect that we can create a civilization where love is the only law, as Richard Rorty said and Ed read today. I too hope and expect that we can create a civilization where love is the only law. And I actually believe that this 21st century, this perilous, challenging, fearful moment is our opportunity to prove that yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julie. We create this space together not out of wood and glass, nor even out of electricity and binary signals, but out of our presence. Wherever we are today, we have chosen to be together, hoping that together we can do so much more to make our lives into all that we dream of, and make our world into the one we hope to see. If we are moved by gratitude to each other, we may choose to support with whatever financial resources we can this community that we are creating and that is creating us. You can use check or cash or check or the QR code or text info in the order of service. The offering will now be given and received. Thank you. So, please join in singing Just as Long as I Have Breath, number 6 in the gray hymnal. The words are on screen and in the order of service. And now, whether online or here in the main hall, please stay after the benediction for our conversation time. We all begin with greeting time, the chance to speak to someone you haven't met before or haven't seen in a while. Old-timers, please greet a newcomer and see if you can find out enough about what brought them here to introduce them to someone else they'll want to meet. Now, if you're online, please unmute yourself, turn on your video, and touch hands virtually like this. And if you're in the main hall or the patio, reach out to hold hands if you and the person next to you are comfortable with that, or show you are connected in spirit. To show you're connected in spirit, cross your hands over your heart. Into the world with peace, be of good courage, hold fast to what is good.